students, welcome back to another session. Previous session we saw what are the different parts of the heart and how are they aligned and what are the different valves present in the heart. Now we will try to understand in this particular session about the working of the human heart and what is the pathway of circulation followed by it, and also what is the difference between single circulation and double circulation. With that introduction, let's move on to the session. Let's see what are the subtopics we have for today. So first one will be what is the pathway of the circulation. So we will try to analyze how the blood flows inside the heart and what is the difference between single and double circulation, and then we also will try to understand what is a heartbeat and how do we calculate the heartbeat and the cardiac cycles. Now these will be the subtopics for today. So let's go on with the session. The first one to understand. On the screens you are looking at a human heart. So we have understood what are the different parts of the heart in the previous session. So we saw it is a 4-chambered heart and it is completely divided. With that introduction, let's see how actually the blood flows and where does it initiate this blood flow. Previous session we talked about something called the pacemaker. So I'm sure you must know what is that pacemaker. Pacemaker, otherwise called as the sinoatrial node, which it initiates the heartbeat or the electric impulses. Now from here you can see, now this will be the position of the sun or the sinoauricular node. Now this will initiate the electrical impulse to be followed by the walls of the heart. Blood enters, initially the blood enters through the right atrium, through the vena cava, which is divided into superior and inferior. So you have here upper and the lower as given here. The upper one we call it as the superior vena cava, and the lower one we call it as the inferior vena cava. Now superior brings blood from your head region and just above the thoracic region, whereas the inferior vena cava will bring blood to the right atrium through the lower parts, that is your legs and below the abdominal region. So this vena cava is the largest vein which is present in the body. Now this brings the deoxygenated blood or impure blood towards the heart at the particular place, that is the vena cava, this at the right atrium. Now once the blood enters the right atrium, it starts filling time to time, and once it is filled, now the heart, that particular chamber is completely filled with blood, it will tend to contract at this position. Now the valves open. So we studied the valves between the right atrium and the left atrium, the right atrium as well as the right ventricle. We said there were valves which are present, that is the tricuspid valve. Now the tricuspid valve will open and the blood from the right atrium will enter into the right ventricle. Now this will be the first step. Now once the blood enters the right ventricle, the right atrium now is in a relaxed mode. Now this happens even on the left side. The only difference is the right side is filled with the deoxygenated blood, whereas the left side is all filled with the oxygenated blood. Now blood from the right ventricle moves towards the lungs. So from here it is taken to the lungs through the pulmonary artery. So we already said that pulmonary artery is the only one which carries impure blood. The rest of the arteries, all of them carry this pure blood. So pulmonary artery will carry from this particular chamber, that is the right ventricle. Now the blood is taken to lungs for purification, and from there the oxygenated blood simultaneously enters through the left atrium, that is through the pulmonary veins. You can see here the pulmonary arteries in the veins given here. Now pulmonary veins will bring the oxygenated blood from the lungs towards the left side of the heart. Now once this enters, the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve opens and the blood flows from the left atrium towards the left ventricle. Now this will be the pathway of circulation, and left ventricle has to pump out its entire blood towards all parts of the body, and this is done through aorta. Now, aorta is the largest artery in the body. Now, this will branch out to several places so that it gives blood to different parts of the body. Now, this will be the direction. The flow of blood, as we understand, it's from the right auricle, then the right ventricle, goes back to the lungs for purification, and then from the lungs it is brought towards the left atrium or the left auricle, and then it enters the left ventricle, and the oxygenated blood is given to different parts of the body through the aorta. Now, that will be the pathway of circulation what we follow here. So you can see the arrows here on the screen. The blood is entering, moving out towards the pulmonary arteries. It goes back to the lungs, and then the blood is being taken in through the pulmonary veins, and you can see a difference between the two portions. This side is entirely deoxygenated blood, and this side will be the oxygenated blood. Now, these are the important vessels which carry blood towards the heart and away from the heart. So the blood vessels which carry towards the heart will be, so the one which brings blood will be from the vena cava as well as the pulmonary veins. The pulmonary artery and aorta, they are directed towards taking blood away from the heart. Now, these two ventricles will be a little bigger chambers, and then the left ventricle is all the more bigger, and it is more stronger as compared to other chambers of the heart. Now, this will be the direction of the flow of blood in various areas. Coming to the next slide. See, here you have a picture, so you can see that how the blood is getting pumped to various parts and how it is getting filled. You can see the direction of the arrows here. So it is moving here, and you can see it is being taken for circulation and then is coming back. Now, this is what is happening with the blood flow. The similar way you can see here, the electrical impulse is also forwarded, and how the heart is getting filled with blood. You can see it is flowing from the auricle towards the ventricles. And the third one, you can see the direction of the flow, that is from the body towards the lungs, and from the lungs towards the heart on the left side, and from there it is given out through the aorta. Now, these will be the direction of the flow of heart. So let's try to understand what are the other aspects of this particular one, how is the heartbeat calculated, and what exactly is meant by cardiac cycles. So what we see on the screens is a double circulation. Before we get into the double circulation, we have to understand what exactly is a heartbeat and a cardiac cycle. So whenever the blood flows, you can see the blood is flowing towards the lungs, and then it's flowing towards the chambers and then taken towards the lungs. Now, that is how the direction happens. Now, this particular cycle has to be completed in certain period of time. So heartbeat, as we all know, heartbeat means the contraction and relaxation in one particular cycle. So every time a chamber relaxes and contracts, we take it as one single heartbeat. And how many beats per minute do you have in a normal individual? It is about 70 to 72 beats per minute. Per minute, a heart contracts and relaxes in this manner. So many times it will happen. So if I want to calculate per minute how many times it goes, every single heartbeat, you can divide it by 72, that is in 60, that is 60 seconds. So each minute when we take about, so we will divide 60 by 72 and we will get a number which is 0.8 seconds. Now 0.8 seconds will be for one single heartbeat. Now this is also whatever we follow till now, the heartbeat, the process, how it goes through, all this is called a cardiac cycle. So 0.8 seconds for one contraction and relaxation in both the chambers, roughly 0.8, so totally 72 beats per minute. That will be the heartbeat. Now, have you ever imagined how your heart beats? It beats with two sounds, that is lub and dub. Now, what are these sounds and where do we see them? So you can see here on the screens how the electrical impulses are going on here. The lub and the dub sound here, we have to understand. That's how we understand this, okay? You have a pacemaker here, which is the sino-auricular node. Now, this will be the electrical conduction of heart and how we calculate exactly the cardiac cycles. So, when the heart starts with the initiation of sino-atrial node, that is the pacemaker. Being muscular, the initiation of electrical impulses happen at this particular region. Now, you can see the flow of direction given here. Now, the sino-auricular node will take the help of the one more node, which is the atrioventricular node. So that becomes much bigger. The impulses are becoming bigger here, and then they are carried towards the walls of the heart. From the atrioventricular node, they are carried by means of certain types of vessels. Here you have this bundle of nerves, which is given the term the bundle of His. Now, this bundle of His, as it goes down, it branches into a left branch and a right bundle branch. Now, this one will deviate towards the walls of the heart, and that's how the impulses right from the sino-auricular node will be carried towards this particular walls of the heart. Now, here it is dividing into two, and when they divide, they give out smaller nerves or smaller branches, which is called as the Purkinje fibers. So the sino-atrial node initiates this particular impulse, which is called as the pacemaker of the heart. Now this pacemaker will take it towards the atrioventricular node, which helps in making the impulses bigger and it can be taken forward. Now from here it is carried to the bundle of the His, where it is dividing into two branches, that is the left side and the right side. Now from here they give out smaller branches called the Purkinje fibers, and these Purkinje fibers move towards the walls of the heart, increasing that electric impulses. The conduction of the heart may be myogenic, that is initiation might be muscles, but the way they conduct is again electrical conduction. Now the entire sequence will be followed when the heart beats. Now this is how this helps, this conduction helps the contraction and the relaxation of the heart, and that's how we are able to calculate the heartbeat and the cardiac cycles. So roughly 0.8 seconds for one cycle. Totally it is 72 times it beats per minute. Now that's the calculation for this particular impulses. So coming to the next one, that is the lub and the dub sound. To understand this, the lub sound initially comes from the closing of the tricuspid valve and the bicuspid valve. Now when these two valves close, once the blood is getting filled into the ventricles, the first lub sound is heard when the tricuspid and bicuspid valves close at the same time. They all close at the same time. That will be the first sound that is heard in a heartbeat, that is the lub sound. Now the second sound, what we call the dub sound, is heard by means of the closing of semilunar valves. Now, where did we study the semilunar valves? In the previous session, we talked about this. The semilunar valves are present at the junction of the pulmonary artery and the aorta. So, when the blood moves out of these blood vessels and then the valves close, that will be the area where the second sound is heard, that is the dub sound. So the lub and the dub sound are created at the closing of the tricuspid bicuspid valves, and the next sound at the semilunar valves at the junction of pulmonary arteries and the aorta. So these are the two sounds heard continuously in a heartbeat. If you check with a stethoscope, you will find your heart sounds are similar to this. So that is how we calculate. So one lub and dub sound can be heard in a single heartbeat. So that is how it works. Now coming to the next one, the electrical conduction of the heart we have tried to understand here. So this is how the blood circulates in the body, creating a heartbeat and creating a single cycle. So before we get into what is meant by the double circulation and all that, we haven't seen still. Now what is this double circulation we are talking about? In fishes, we find it is a two-chambered heart, and as the organisms become more and more higher, they have this three-chambered, four-chambered heart. In fishes, being a two-chambered heart, the maximum work done is by the gills, because the gills are the one which receives the oxygenated blood, and that's how they pump it towards the body. The heart has minimum work when it comes to fishes because it's a single chambered. It only brings the impure blood, and gills do the other work, that is getting it oxygenated. So there is always a problem that the blood gets mixed in a period of time. In fishes, because the blood enters only once and moves out through the gills, it is called a single circulation. But not in the higher organisms. Higher organisms, we slowly move on to the double circulation. When we come to amphibians and reptiles, being a three-chambered heart, you still find there is a mixing of blood between the oxygenated and deoxygenated. It is not the case when you come to aves and mammals. The birds and the mammals have this technique of completely separating out the walls into the four-chambered heart. So here we talk about another type of circulation, closed circulation, but we do talk about double circulation. So what exactly is double circulation? So when we talk about the flow of the blood, we said the blood enters the right atrium by means of vena cava. So that will be the first one which is entering into the lungs. So vena cava will be number one. And the blood from the ventricle, that is the right side, we understood that it moves out towards the lungs through the pulmonary arteries. Now that will be the second one. So pulmonary artery to the lungs is the next one. Okay, and the blood enters through the pulmonary vein from the lungs towards the left ventricle. That will be the third step. And the aorta from the left auricle to the ventricle, the blood is getting pushed, and aorta will supply oxygenated blood towards other parts of the body. Now this will be the step 4. Now to understand what is double circulation, we can see that the blood enters through the vena cava and the blood also enters through the pulmonary vein. That means the blood is entering twice towards the heart. So you have the direction of the arrows, you can see it here. So this is towards the heart. So this is also towards the heart. So you have these two steps which are bringing blood twice to the heart. Now at the same time, 2 times the blood is also leaving the heart, where from the pulmonary artery towards the lungs, now here, and the second one will be aorta, where it takes the blood outside. So 2 times they are also leaving the heart here. So since the blood travels towards the heart twice and moves out of the heart also twice, 2 times the circulation happens, so we call it as double circulation. Now apart from this, we will try to understand one more concept of this double circulation. This entire circulation present in the human heart is divided into 2 phases. The first phase which occurs in the heart, we call it as the systemic circulation. The second one, where the purification happens in the lungs, we call it as the pulmonary circulation. So you have the entire circulation divided into systemic zone as well as the pulmonary one. So 2 different circulations happening at the same place. That also we can say it is double circulation. Basically leaving the heart twice and entering the heart twice and divided into 2 phases, all that will add up to the double circulation. And now what is the advantage of having a double circulation as compared to that of a single circulation or mixing of blood? In lower organisms, the energy levels are much different as compared to that of the higher organisms. As the organisms become bigger and the body weight also increases, there will be necessity of more and more oxygen. By having this double circulation and the complete division of the heart region, the animals will have the advantage of having more oxygen supplies to the body, and when there is mixing, as seen in the case of amphibians and reptiles, there will be little bit of oxygen being moved out to the deoxygenated side. Now this cannot happen in this double circulation, so it is advantageous for the higher organisms because they can utilize the entire oxygen which is available to them. So that will be the basic thing about the double circulation. So now this circulation is generally seen in higher organisms. That is where you have a 4-chambered heart and completely separated hearts as seen in birds and mammals. So this is the advantage and the difference between single circulation and double circulation. So with that understanding, let's try to take up a few questions what we studied in this particular session. Now, first question, where is the lub and the dub sound heard? So this we have already understood. The lub sound at the closing of the tricuspid and the bicuspid valves, and the dub sound at the region of the semilunar valves, at the pulmonary artery and at the aorta region. Now this will be the answer for the first question. Now what is the next one? What will be the time taken for one cardiac cycle? One cardiac cycle will divide into two. It will be divided into 60 by 72. It will take 0.8 seconds. Okay. Now, why is the separation of heart useful in higher organisms? Because the energy supplies are different and it needs more oxygen. It is easy for the mammals and the birds to avail that entire oxygen which is available to them. So that will be the advantage of having a double circulation instead of single circulation. So that will be the next one. Now coming to blood circulation in fishes is different from the human beings because it is single circulation. The other one will be double circulation. You can justify the statement by saying that this is a 2-chambered heart and it's a 4-chambered heart. Here the blood enters and leaves only once. So gills will do the oxygenation of that blood. So here it is single circulation, whereas in human beings the blood enters twice and leaves twice, and this is seen as a 4-chambered heart in the circulation. Now all that you can explain in this particular question. Coming to the second one, describe blood circulation in human beings. You give the pathway of the circulation of that particular blood, how it enters, how it leaves through the pulmonary arteries, how it goes to the lungs and then gets back to the heart. The entire direction and flow you can give it here. Coming to the next one. What are the blood vessels which pump blood away from the heart? When I give you this question, it is confusing because, so whenever we talk about blood vessels leaving or entering of the heart, we will be only looking at superior vena cava and we will be talking about aorta. That is not the case. Superior vena cava along with the pulmonary veins from the lungs, both are getting inside the heart at that point. Similarly, they are doing it. At the same time, they do that. So when the deoxygenated blood enters through the vena cava, the same time the blood from the lungs also enters towards the left side through the pulmonary vein. So it is simultaneous. So these two vessels bring the blood towards the heart and away from the heart here it is given. So we write the pulmonary arteries and the aorta are the one which take the blood away from the heart. So these are the questions we have understood in this particular session. Now next session we will be understanding what is the blood pressure. So we'll be talking about blood pressure and we will be looking at what exactly is an ECG. We will try to understand what is systole, diastole and how we calculate that blood pressure. And we'll be also looking at certain other aspects. That is, we'll be looking at this particular one. So let's understand all these things in the next session. So that's all for now. Keep watching and thank you.